So, one of our jobs here at Eagle's Eye is to help cover
Everything.
everything.
Even
Everything you
the
need to know, even important things.
very important things.
So, one important thing that's happening in like today's society with teens and everything are like there's a lot of issues with like teen suicide and depression and stuff like that. So, we decided to talk to somebody who is
I'm trying to remember his name. Salvatore is his last name. That's all I know.
okay. So, we decided to talk to a guy who's experienced and knows how to help people who are struggling. So, why don't we go talk to him right now?
Hi, I'm Brianna Kelly here talking with Tony Salvatore, who is with the group of the Montgomery County Emergency Services, talking about suicide prevention. So, what are some signs that students are suicidal?
Certainly, what parents, teachers, and other students could look for is significant changes in somebody's behavior. People losing interest in their schoolwork, losing interest in team participation, withdrawing socially, maybe starting to use drug and alcohol, which was not characteristic, or if they did abuse those substances, using more. Those are some things to look for right off the bat.
Okay, and where can they get help if needed?
The best place to start is with the closest responsible adult. In a school setting, obviously the school counselors, the teacher. This is not something that people can deal with on their own. If it's away from the home, I think you have to involve parents, or if it's a friend, involve your parents to talk to their parents.
Okay, and how can someone intervene if they notice this is happening?
Well, the first thing is, in most cases, is to listen, is to take the person seriously. Obviously, if somebody is in the course of attempting suicide, that's something you need outside help with as a 911 situation. But if you get a text or a phone call or somebody mentions something, is to try to engage them, try to listen to them, show them as you care, and offer to help them get help.
Okay, and why do people commit suicide? What are some reasons?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. Is two things are necessary for somebody to take their life. You have to have a desire to die, and you've got to be able to do it. The desire to die can come from things like depression, shame, victimization. The ability to do it comes from things like abuse, being exposed to pain, things like that. Sometimes when these things come together, there can be a suicide attempt. So what we have to look out for is what are some things that might expose somebody to feeling trapped, feeling that they have to get out of a situation. And again, if somebody's in an abusive relationship, if somebody is being bullied, these aren't causes of suicide, but they can precipitate suicidal ideation.
Okay, and what is the purpose of Suicide Prevention Week?
It is basically to get as much information out to the public in a way, to use the term, normalize suicide. Suicide is not something we much think about until tragically it happens. Then it goes away. The hope was by having a day, a week, and even a month where there would be events, there'd be information, activities like we're participating in right now, we could get the word out. So that's the hope.
Okay, and what are some of the activities that we're participating in?
Well, in this county, the Montgomery County Suicide Prevention Work Group is having a big forum on Wednesday at the Human Services building, the former Sacred Heart Hospital. Bringing people in from law enforcement, the schools, the human service agencies, to talk about where do we go from here with suicide prevention. In Delaware County, not too far away, survivors of suicide is having a memorial candle lighting service. 300 or 400 people come out every year, people who've lost somebody to suicide. They remember their loss, they share it with the other people, names are read, candles are lit, and it's a big support event. There's other activities like that going on around the state.
And how can people find out about them and get information?
One of the simplest places, there's a new website, it's only about a year old, called montgocares.org, MONTOCARES.org. It has information about suicide prevention. It has links to organizations engaged in suicide prevention. People can work down from there and either find an event, find a source of help, or find information.
Okay, and what ways do you think suicide can be prevented?
I think the best way is to get people to see that it's something that can happen to anybody. It's not just something that happens to them, to say, for instance, kids who use drugs or drink or things like that. It can happen to anybody for any number of reasons. And I think we have to see it in some cases, at least thinking about suicide can be an outcome of stress we can't deal with, stress that overwhelms us. It's only when it goes beyond that it starts to get abnormal. But I think if somebody starts to say they're having thoughts of hurting themselves, I think it's no different than somebody saying they have a stomach ache, that we try to get them help for it. And that's the simplest place to start.
Okay, and who can you contact if you think somebody is on the edge?
It depends on the circumstances. Again, if a classmate says something in a school, insofar as you can do it, I would take them by the arms to the school counselor, student assistance program person, a teacher, anybody they trust. If it's a call or a text you get away from the school, again, I'd encourage the person to get help, but if there's any indication by what the person's saying that it's an imminent risk situation, that the person is really scared and may really do something, you have to bring it to an adult's attention. It's not something that most young people or even most adults can deal with on their own. And certainly if somebody is making what sounds like an overt threat, it's a 911 situation.
Okay, and how can somebody show that they will support somebody who needs help?
Again, by caring. You don't necessarily have to know the right things to say. Sometimes you just have to listen and be supportive. I mean, most people have never been suicidal before. They don't know what's happening to them. They're scared too. And I think the fact that they're also sometimes doubting anybody cares about them. They may be thinking they're not worth anything, that people will be better off without them. Anything you can do to counter those kind of thoughts.
Okay, and what are some resources that are available to students who feel troubled?
Again, the school situation is got a lot of resources in terms of counselors, teachers, and things like that. Pennsylvania recently passed an act where teachers will be able to include suicide prevention training as part of their recertification every year. So going forward, more teachers are going to know more formally about suicide prevention. I think the concern is what happens when people are away from school. And I think that, again, perhaps classes, perhaps incorporating suicide prevention into the curriculum. I think the state of Pennsylvania would do well to have a state-approved curriculum that school districts like Norristown Regional School District could adopt if they wished.
Okay, and so can somebody go somewhere private if they feel uncomfortable about it?
Certainly, I mean, there are, well, first of all, there's a national suicide helpline, 1-800-273-TALK. Young people call it all the time. They even have texting capabilities. Everything that happens in a crisis center is confidential up until the point they're not going to let somebody die. But certainly there are private therapists. The school social worker here in the school district can help people arrange for therapists. The important thing is to get help.
Okay, and what is Suicide Prevention Week?
Again, it's an opportunity to get the word out, to make people feel that suicide, like any other community health condition, is something that can be dealt with.
Okay, and how can schools help prevent this?
I think the magic word there is prevent. I think schools can impress on their students at a very young age the one reality: suicide is preventable. It's more preventable than a lot of problems they're going to face later on. There are resources that can help people. I think schools can give that, and as I'm always thinking, a lot of the risk that people experience when they go off to college, when they begin working, when they become young adults, starts when they're young. So if we can also give them the tools to deal with these, if these risks arise later on, they have something to turn to for help.
Okay, well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to bring up something we did last year for Suicide Prevention Week. This is a little pocket-sized guide that we gave out to school counselors last year. And practically every counselor in the district, including people beyond Montgomery County, received them. We'd like to renew this effort. We'd appreciate any help people can do this, because I think we've got to make suicide prevention portable, affordable, and available. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. I'm Brianna Kelly here talking with Tony Salvatore about suicide prevention. Now back to the Eagle's Eye.